Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Story to Screen podcast, the movie podcast where we review all different kinds of movies, new and old. I am Joshua Ling, and joining me are one of you. Pick one.
This is Benjamin Curley.
And this is Ian Mathitt.
Just so everyone knows, Chris Reyes, our fearless leader, is battling hordes of Chitauri somewhere, but he'll be back in a week. At least that's what I heard. Do you guys have any other stories as to that? He's kind of been cryptic about it.
Kryptonite, perhaps.
So he has some kind of connection to Smallville?
Probably, yeah. It sounds about like him.
Ian, any other theories?
Something about rescuing burning puppies from buildings or something like that. I don't know.
Okay, all right. Now, I don't know if either of you have seen the musical episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but that made me think of I've got a theory that it's a dancing demon knew something isn't right there. So that's what that made me think of. But any which way, we are Chrisless this week, but Chris asked me to go ahead and field this. The real reason is he did not particularly, he needed some time off, and he wasn't particularly interested in this episode in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Today we're going to be looking at Guardians of the Galaxy.
Woohoo!
Oh yeah.
But first, for weekly segments, we're going to go ahead and talk about some of the movies we've seen and trailers. Also, Comic-Con happened, but I don't think you guys have anything specific that you came out of that was interesting to you. Is that correct?
Not really. Anything that was announced, I kind of already knew about. So.
Right. Yeah, so anyway, one of those trailers, and I'll throw this to you, Benjamin, the Hobbit, the third film for The Hobbit is going to be coming out, and we saw the trailer for that. I really particularly like the use of mist and shadow. Well, what were your opinions on that?
Oh, I love that. They gave me chills, actually. I saw it just on my computer during lunch break once, or maybe it was on my phone, and I didn't have the sound up, so I didn't hear the music, and it kind of looked all bad and everything else. And then I saw it in the theaters and put the music to it, and it's like, whoa, yeah, okay, I'm looking forward to seeing it now.
Yeah, the music definitely made it feel a lot more epic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They can't go wrong with Mist and Shadow. That's
you can't. That's one of my favorites.
Yep. So, and then the other one that I wanted to bring up, I'll throw this to you, Ian, was Big Hero 6, our first film that is a collaboration between two branches of Walt Disney, Marvel Studios and Walt Disney Animation Studios.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about it. Like, honestly, the first time I saw the trailer, that was a few weeks ago, and I was just kind of like, meh. And then after watching a couple more times, I was like, this could be a really good product.
Thoughts, Benjamin?
Well, it's from the creators of Wreck-It Ralph, and you can't really go wrong there.
Dude, that was such a great film.
Yes. That was a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. To my shame, I don't have it on my shelf yet.
Gasp.
But no, I expect it to be superb. And just judging by the humor from the trailer, yeah, it's going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm definitely looking forward to that one in particular. And I actually was looking forward to it before just for the fact that Walt Disney Studios and Marvel Studios are working together on something. Yeah. I love the idea of that. It's two cinematic giants working together on something that I really think Walt himself would have been super excited about happening, and I know Stan Lee is definitely excited about something like this happening, even though this isn't one of his properties or anything. It is, I believe, it's an Image comic that Marvel bought the rights to years ago. But it is based on an actual comic book, which I find really interesting because there haven't been a lot of, other than the DC movies and things from Warner Brothers, there haven't been a lot of animation adaptations, especially in recent years, of comic books, especially the not so well known ones.
Yeah.
And now we're going to go ahead and jump right into the review. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, hey, cool, man. No problem. No problem at all.
Who are you?
Star-Lord.
Who?
Well, Star-Lord, man. Legendary outlaw.
They call themselves the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Hooked on a feeling. I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. I'm hooked on a feeling.
Hooked on a feeling. Anyway, yeah, so we're going to start with first name alphabetical. We're going to go with Benjamin to start out. Benjamin, what were your the alphabet. Whoever thought of something like that. Benjamin, what are your thoughts on the, general thoughts on the movie as a whole? What were your impressions coming out of it? And now that you've had some time to digest, and also when did you see it?
I saw it yesterday right after work.
So what are your impressions?
Very mixed. On one hand, I really, really enjoyed it. It was good story. It made me laugh. I don't know if it was just because it was the end of a work week and I was tired, but it made me cry too. And it was good.
I laughed. I cried. It moved me, Bob.
Exactly. But on the other hand, just the amount of foul language really took me by surprise and really disappointed me. I mean, I'm sitting there and right next to me was a kid, probably, I would say 5 to 6 years old. And it's like, and he's hearing the S word and seeing the finger, and it's just like, it was disappointing. I mean, I don't recall, I do know that the other Marvel movies had content like that, but I don't think they had that extreme. And it was disappointing. I kind of expected that just seeing the first trailer.
Okay.
But it's hard to, it's kind of mixed.
Okay.
I liked it, but there's some disappointments.
All right. And, let's go with the next letter down. I for Ian. The first sound is E, and my brain works in sounds, not in letters.
Whatever works.
Yes, yes.
Hey,
yes.
you.
Yes.
The other guy.
Hey, you.
Yeah.
Hey, you. What did you think?
Kind of along the lines of what Benjamin said. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I walked out of there going, that was like Joss Whedon-esque in a lot of how it was put together. But yeah, the amount of language was a little disappointing. And I noticed there were a lot of young children in the theater when I went. I went yesterday, early afternoon. It was just, I don't know. I guess I kind of expected that walking into it just because of what it is and how the trailers portrayed it. But I just kind of, they probably could have backed off from that a little bit, because I remember, well, as far as I can remember, the Avengers was pretty clean.
Yeah.
And that was a fantastic film. And I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy overall, but yeah, they probably could have toned down the language a little bit.
Coming out of this one, I had several things I was torn on, a lot like you guys, but I think the overall feeling that I got coming out of this one was just a feeling of joy at these characters, these seriously deep but also very, very funny characters. I think this movie is almost more of a comedy than an action movie.
Yeah.
I think it fits more in the comedy genre. It's very, very funny.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It was totally in its own theme. It didn't really fit with any of the other Marvel films that are all very
Yeah.
serious or drama, or, they're one extreme or the other. This one was definitely new territory for them.
It was very much
Yeah.
a genre buster. It crossed over so many different genres and things. And I think, my general feeling coming out of it, I was turning this over a lot in my head. And I know Chris wants me to wrap up this show, with this sort of thing, but I'll go ahead and say it now. One of the biblical things that I kept coming back to, one of the verses in regard to this, I kept saying was, it's not what goes into a man that defiles him, but what proceeds out of his mouth. And it's one of those things where, I don't agree with putting, technically I don't agree with putting any language in a film just because I don't think it's needed. Our language is so rich in and of itself that I don't think that there are any situations storytelling wise that you can't just tell the story in a slightly different way than
It's very rare. There's only one movie I've ever seen bad language done tastefully.
Yeah, exactly. So, and would you care to share what that is, just off the top of your head?
Oh, that was Mission Impossible 4.
Okay.
Aha.
All right.
When Tom Cruise was flying back into the building and someone says, the rope's too short, and he is, no, blank. It was so perfectly done. I couldn't help but laugh.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a good moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, one particular moment in this movie that you could argue that it worked, but I wouldn't have done it that way, is when Star-Lord is making his speech, but we'll get into that a little bit later, his main big speech where he says, I see losers. And so we'll get into that in a few minutes, but generally the thing that I came out with was while, you can nitpick all these various things, about any film, whether it's something that's objectionable like foul language, or whether it's something like, one little plot thing that didn't take away from the whole of the movie. The point that I have coming out of this was I had an amazing time watching Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of what I came out with. Now, continuing on from that, Ben, what did you think of, let's just run down the characters, and we can each, let's do it this way instead of Ben running down all the characters, and just hearing your opinion. Let's do one character at a time, and
Okay.
we'll keep the whole round table alphabetically going with, Benjamin and myself. And yes, I'll get the last word every time, but that's part of my master plan, right?
I see how this works.
Get for hosting. Uh-huh.
I know, right? So anyway, we'll start with, our main man, our leader of the group, Star-Lord, Peter Quill, right? Was the character's name. And so, Benjamin, what did you think of Peter Quill?
I liked him. I sympathized with him. I found him extremely funny. There was a few moments where the story kind of threw me off. Right at the very beginning, it didn't seem to sit with me as to why he, wouldn't take his mother's hand as she's dying. And it didn't sit well with me until I realized, she's probably been going through this for a long time. He's grown distant from her. He probably doesn't even know her anymore.
Right.
And that's the only way I could really reconcile that. Besides that, he was a really consistent character. I loved his love for, Earth, old Earth music.
Yes.
It's really funny, getting to hear a lot of those classic songs.
Well, I'll point out two things before we switch over to Ian, but I wanted to point out one thing. Technically it's not old Earth music, it's just 70s. And this is taking place in modern day, just way out in the galaxy somewhere. And then the other thing, is, Chris Pratt, the more I see him, and I saw him in the Lego movie, of course, doing the voice of Emmett, but the more I hear and see of him, the more I'm like, this guy is a star on the level of a Danny Kaye or something like that. So he's kind of got a 40s, 50s sort of swagger and,
he does, yeah.
and just charisma about him. This guy is a star.
No, he really doesn't disappoint. When he is talking on screen, it's just like, oh, all attention. He's got something to say, and it's, we can expect some humor thrown into the seriousness of it. That's just all the characters he's played.
For sure. So, Ian, what were some of your thoughts on Star-Lord and Chris Pratt's performance as well?
My first encounter with Chris Pratt was with Parks and Rec, the show. And, with that, and then after that, he kind of played a whole lot of, how shall I put this? Not too bright individuals. So it's kind of like, you kind of walk in a movie like this going, all right, so is he going to be an idiot? Or is he going to be like kind of an anti-hero type or what?
Well, even Emmett in the Lego movie was a little bit of an idiot.
Yeah,
I'd argue that's even there with Star-Lord to a certain extent as well. But
it's like the and how do I put this sensitively? It's kind of like the man idiot. It's like he's kind of clueless about some stuff, and it's a little bit hyped up view of his own self, but in like it's like a realistic portrayal of a normal human man, I guess is how you can put that.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the character. He had a lot of really good dialogue and, a little bit of the anti-hero. And
a
also,
little bit. He's like Han Solo and Indiana Jones kind of rolled up into one.
Yeah, kind of like the everyman hero that you can really get behind. And so I enjoyed his character a lot.
One thing I'll point out, and you guys have both basically said all of my thoughts on it, so I'll just point out one particular scene. And obviously we go into spoilers on the show, so if anyone's listening, we already did get into some spoilers, but we'll say it again. Spoilers. The whole beginning sequence, not the beginning sequence with his mom, but the one after the Marvel logo, with the opening credits when he's dancing and kicking the little rodent things, and then he sings into one of them like it's a microphone. I could not stop laughing. That was absolutely hilarious, and it made him, I think you're kind of, and I'll point something out, Benjamin, you said about, not taking his mom's hand, but before I say that, the whole scene with his mom dying and stuff, you're immediately at least sympathetic to his loss. That's kind of, you're immediately like, this poor little boy, all this kind of stuff is happening to him. But then to see him kicking little animals, it kind of gives you this weird, not so sure about this guy kind of thing at the same time. And I found that very, very interesting that they did that, because they're kind of ugly and stuff, so it's not like he's kicking a cute puppy or whatever, but he is, just kind of joyously kicking these things, and that's a little bit psychotic. So I found that interesting. And one other thing I'll point out, Benjamin, with the not taking his mom's hand, I think in that situation, especially someone at that age, and I thought that kid was brilliant for the small amount of time he was on screen. Yeah. I think he wasn't so much, not distant. That's not what I got. He wasn't so much distant from his mom or whatever. It was, he didn't want her to die, and he was scared of her dying, and is scared of death to the point where he doesn't want to be, even in the same room as death
anything
happening.
To accept it or,
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I got out of it, was he was scared of death itself to the point where he wouldn't, of course, think that consciously. It's a subconscious thing. He doesn't want to do anything to accept it, and he's also scared of it happening to the point where he's not even seeing his mom necessarily. He's seeing death. He's seeing death taking his mom, and he's scared of it.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So
that's a very good point. And that, him taking her hand would be an acknowledgement of her dying. And that's, whether it's a subconscious thing or conscious, that's, especially for a little kid, that's a lot to take in.
Sure.
And that's, to see your own mother in that kind of position, it's not easy. I mean, as an adult, it's not easy. And as a young child, I can't imagine what that would be like.
definitely. I think if we go through the characters in this movie, it's such a character-driven movie that, yeah, we'll get to the plot elements as we talk about the characters, but this is such a character-filled movie. I think the important thing is to get through these main 5 characters for sure, and then kind of talk about the trimmings and things around it. So the next one on the list is, by order of appearance, I believe is Gamora. And I'll go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Yes, that is like Sodom and Gomorrah, kind of, sort of. But,
Not spelled the same, but
it's not spelled the same,
Yes.
but pronounced the same. And, the one thing to take notice of, yes, she's a hero. Yes, she has that name. Yes, it is referencing that. But, I did not know that she was pretty much adopted and robbed from her parents' character. Thanos. I knew she was Thanos' daughter, but I didn't realize that she was adopted. I'm not into the comics as much, so I did not know that about her. And so let's throw it to Benjamin. What did you think of Gamora, portrayed by Zoe Saldana?
Very good performance, highly sexualized, I'm afraid. But very good performance. And no, I haven't seen her play an alien. The last time I saw her was in Star Trek, and she's always done a really good performance there. She's very believable. And it was really cool seeing her in more of a action role. I know she did some movie here where she was action. I didn't see that. But no, it was really cool seeing her as an assassin and, just taking out the bad guys. And, her character, there wasn't really much development on her character. I mean, she kind of was the same person all the way through. So I don't have too much to say about that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed, that there wasn't a whole lot of character development with her. And it was actually kind of surprising when she right off the bat stated her real purpose. Like, I was kind of expecting, in fact, I remember thinking when that happened, oh, well, I'm kind of surprised they didn't wait until later to reveal that.
You keep expecting her to switch roles again and betray him or something.
Yeah, something like that. But just like to be upfront about that, like immediately, like, oh, by the way, I'm actually trying to overthrow this guy, and I'm not his real daughter. It was kind of surprising to see that so early on. I don't know, maybe that was a conscious decision. They didn't want too many different plot lines going at the same time. When they were writing it or whatever, but that was definitely surprising and one of several things that really took me by, surprise, to overdo that word.
Well, that's surprising.
I was surprised.
Surprise!
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was a good character and yeah, not a whole lot of depth, but I think it was a good supporting role to Star-Lord.
I will say that while compared to all the other characters that were in the story, I think she may have, in a relative sense, been somewhat underdeveloped, that sort of thing. She didn't have a lot of change. That is a good point, Ben. But I think that, when you think of an overlord, evil overlord having daughters, actually ones that rebel against him. I think that's kind of a little social commentary there, that if it's a bad dad, they're gonna, rebel against him. I don't necessarily agree with it, or anything, but I just thought that was interesting that he had 2 daughters, who went about their rebellion different ways, on different sides of the fence. But both of them wanted to overthrow him. The other one, of course, Nebula, played by Karen Gillian, the role that she shaved her head for. So, I
think she owned that part.
She did a very good job with that, yeah. I think with Gamora, my thing was, she was the actual emotional compass of the group. Because while she had, everything taken from her, literally like everything, she knew, and her goal was to take down Thanos, not necessarily in vengeance, but so that this didn't happen again. I think that was the point of Gamora's character. I think this character could have been the Jar Jar Binks of this entire thing. And I think he could have been just completely what do you call it? Just the most annoying thing.
Imbecile?
ever. Yes, an imbecile. And I think he turned into one of the most interesting characters and something that really I'm like emotionally invested in a talking raccoon. Just think about that. I am emotionally invested in a talking raccoon and I am completely and totally sober. So considering all of that, Benjamin Rocket Raccoon.
Oh, I loved it. It was great. It's
a he.
Like he really, yeah. I mean, he didn't really do anything that was deliberately funny, but everything he did was funny. He's like this grumpy old cat or something. I don't know. It's just, everything pisses him off. It's just,
it's true.
Yeah. And his obsession with explosives and firepower was really hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
When he wakes up in the prison, his face is kind of mushed and his hair's everywhere. That was, it's like, whoa, okay. That looks like me in the morning.
I was honestly surprised that they put Bradley Cooper in that role.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure if he would really be able to carry it, but he did, and he did a terrific job.
Yes.
And that was one of my personal favorite characters from the movie. And it was just brought a lot of, like Benjamin said, kind of unintentional humor to it.
Yeah. Any particular moments from him that stand out to you?
Oh man. I really like the scene where they're escaping from prison. And that was pretty cool. I'm not, when I'm watching a movie, especially in theater, I'm usually just kind of like, you know, don't want to make too much of a ruckus. I don't want to be that guy. But during that scene, it was like, yeah! Just because, I don't know.
And
It was really cool.
leg.
Yes, and the leg. Oh my goodness, the leg. And the eye later on. I just wanted to see
the leg and then towards the end, the eye. Yeah, that was hilarious.
Yes. And I know people that are totally like that too, you know, who would say, oh, I need this. It's like, no, I really didn't need it. I just thought you see if you could get it. Two moments that stick out to me most with him were the leg, as we said, and also, the moment where he's drunk. Does anyone remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. When he says, and this was the moment I'm like, okay, I just got emotionally invested in a talking raccoon. And that was when he was saying, I didn't ask to be made. I didn't want to be this monster, you know, whatever they, you know, took me apart and put me back together over and over because he's a genetically modified, you know, to be intelligent raccoon. And so he's totally unsure of what he even is. He's just trying to make it in the universe however he can. You know, at one point, you know, you kind of feel for him just because he says, you know, whatever. I don't even have a long lifespan anyway. You know, and it's kind of like, it's funny, but at the same time, you're like, oh man, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I thought Bradley Cooper owned the role. I think that he was an amazing example of creating a really crazy, weird, goofy concept, but grounding it and making it believable and real. I think it's one of the most amazing examples of that I can think of in recent film history. Now we're moving on to his houseplant, Groot, played by Vin Diesel, who apparently recorded the line, I am Groot, over 1,000 times in several different languages for the various, you know, DVD releases and other overseas releases on down the line. Groot, you guys, what were your thoughts on Groot?
I am Groot.
And what do you feel about Groot?
I am Groot?
Pretty much, yes. But seriously, Benjamin.
Seriously. No, it was great. It was, yeah, his innocence isn't the right word. His
naivete?
Yeah. Yes. That's probably the better word. It just put them in so many, saved them and put them in trouble all at the same time. It's hilarious. Mm-hmm. You know, he's making stupid mistakes, but at the same time, he's saving their rear ends. It's, I can't see Van Diesel doing that, but it's been a while since I've seen any of his films, but it's hilarious.
Well, you know he was the Iron Giant, and to me, that's my other favorite role from him.
Yeah.
And so many people joke that's like, oh, he just has one line. That's hilarious. Like, these are some of his best roles. Quite honestly, every time he said, I am Groot in this movie, every time he uttered those 3 syllables, it had an air of something more to it. You know, there was a depth to the things, to him saying, I am Groot over and over and over, you know, when he'd say it. It's just like,
well, yeah, you could tell that there was definitely emotion put into it, and there was inflections and a whole bunch of, there was definitely more to it than just 3 words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think it's the same thing with Iron Giant. You know, he doesn't really say a lot in that movie, but what he says counts. And I think that's something that Vin Diesel is, you know, he's looked at as this action star, all this kind of stuff. And yeah, he does fine with that. You know, he's whatever, you know, I think he's good with that, and that's what he's known for. But I think when you really want to see his acting chops, Groot and the Iron Giant are 2 amazing roles for Vin Diesel's performances, you know. And so, we'll go ahead and throw it over to Ian. What did you think of Groot?
Not much more I can add to that. I was thinking about halfway through the film, I was like, I can't imagine Vin Diesel sitting in a recording in a sound booth saying, I am Groot 1,000 times. Like, I mean, imagine you get to the point where you just start messing with it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You're playing around, you know?
Yeah. But I thought, like you said, I thought I did a really good job.
One of the things that sticks out to me the most as a moment, and you guys can mention moments if you like with him. Obviously, there's the scene at the end. I know we go into spoilers, but I just don't want to say that one just because I think I like letting it speak for itself. Is his ending, and then also the other 2 that stick out are the when he takes the battery in the background while they're talking about the plan. I was cracking up seeing him reaching up there and grabbing. They're like, we're going to have to get that last. You know, we got to get all this other stuff first because there's going to be an alarm. And he's just, you know, causing this alarm, you know, he's just, oh, okay, I'm going to help, you know. And, so that was really funny. And then the other thing was, almost on the levels of Hulk smashing Loki in Avengers. Toward the end, he sticks his roots through like 10 bad guys on either arm and just uses the entire arm with the bad guys on it to club other bad guys in this tunnel. And you're just like, dude, they're dead. Chill. You know?
And then that smile afterwards.
Yes. Classic.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
He's like, did I do good? So yes, Groot, like Benjamin says, the naivete, the, you know, wanting to help and save his friends. I think he's more emotionally he's more the emotional center, but Gamora is the emotional compass. If that kind of makes sense. Everyone, you know, who thinks, you know, we should do good or even thinks we should do bad, they're kind of brought back to the center when they look at, and in Rocket's case, talk to Groot. Because only Rocket can understand the little subtleties in his saying, I am Groot over and over, which I thought was a funny throwback to Looney Tunes type stuff, you know? Looney Tunes and Lassie, you know, oh, Timmy's at the well.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to the last of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Drax the Destroyer, played by professional wrestler Dave Bautista.
His character was very driven by the need for revenge, and it's very, very clear that that's not going to be satisfied. You know, when one character dies that he's after, he's on to the next one. And he wasn't an immensely funny character. He had some moments where you know, at the beginning there, where it's like, well, he takes everything literally.
Yes. Yes.
That was pretty funny. And it's very stereotyped into the, you know, all brawn, no brains.
Yes.
So there's not too much depth to his character because of that.
Other than, you know, his motivations for revenge, which, you know, obviously obviously revenge is something that is, obviously the Bible says vengeance is mine, says the Lord. And in that case, vengeance is not something that we're supposed to take in that way. It should be more seeking justice than revenge.
Exactly.
And so, in his case, yeah, the way he goes about it is wrong, but you totally understand his emotions in regard to his wife and child were killed by Ronin, the most prevalent villain in the movie, and he wants to kill him for revenge. So,
yeah,
I think of any of the characters in this film, one of the major things, like for me, when a story is really good, it involves some sort of redemption. And I think Drax was kind of the example of that redemption.
Sure.
Because he spends the first half of the film, it was all about revenge. All about killing Ronin, and that's everything he wanted. And then when he actually got to that point and failed miserably, and then realized how much he'd messed up by that single-minded, narrow determination, that he changed and became a part of the group instead of just a lone ranger, if you will. So I thought that's what I pulled from his character, and I appreciated that about his character's role in that context. And he had a few funny parts with the literally thing, but I think he definitely played the redemptive role more than anyone else.
That's a good point.
We have to stop Ronin.
How? I have a plan.
You've got a plan.
Yes.
First of all, you're copying me from when I said I had a plan.
I'm not. People say that all the time. It's not that unique of a thing to say.
Secondly, I don't even believe you have a plan.
I have part of a plan.
What percentage of a plan do you have?
You don't get to ask questions after the nonsense you pulled on Nowhere.
I just saved Quill.
We've already established that you destroying the ship that I'm on is not saving me.
When did we establish?
Like 3 seconds ago!
No, I wasn't listening. I was thinking of something else.
Oh.
She's right. You don't get an opinion. What percentage?
I don't know. 12%.
12%?
I am Groot.
Coming out of that, Benjamin, just anything else that strikes you about this movie? We talked about the language some. You can talk about that some more if you like. The writers, directors, the comedy, just anything that comes to mind, about this movie, the designs, any of that.
Well, from a, visual effects standpoint, it was superb. There were no, well, okay, I take that back. There was one point that it just kind of didn't look the most realistic, and that was when the ship was coming down at the end, and a part of it lands in the water, and we just have that one splash. We have no waves coming out of it. That kind of stood out to me as, okay, they kind of got lazy there. I enjoyed the first Alien Planet, just the thought that was put into that with the environment. As far as the story went, I really enjoyed it. I was just disappointed by the language because I saw that they could put humor in without the language, and yet they still felt it was necessary. That just disappointed me because language it's kind of a writer's crutch. It's kind of a lazy thing to do, and when they proved in other places they can pull off humor and emotion without language, it's they didn't have to use it. And it really annoyed me that something that's so family oriented as Marvel has been would result to that level. I looked up the Avengers, like we were talking about earlier, and it didn't have a single S word in it, no F word. It had some of the I'll use the term loosely, minor language in it, but nothing to that same level. And so it was a real disappointment in that. And so I'm hoping, I'm just expecting that to be the theme for the Guardians of the Galaxy storyline. I'm just expecting them to, stick in that thread.
Yeah, I think.
And I kind of saw that coming with the trailer.
Yeah.
I mean, trailers give away a lot these days. Actually,
Yes.
that's a whole nother rant on its own. But I knew that was coming and I was expecting it, but it was still very disappointing.
Yeah. I do think that this is, like you said, kind of they're setting the bar for further Guardians in regard to the language. I don't necessarily think this is going to have an immediate effect on the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think they're all going to stay kind of the way they have been. I think.
Yeah, they've all been very consistent with their own setting.
Yeah. And
Captain America has always been very clean.
Yes.
As far as, so I'm expecting them to stay in their own little worlds as it is.
Yeah.
For now.
And I think.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, when it comes to that, I think I don't agree with their justification, but I think the reason, from a story perspective anyway, they decided to do this is a story about criminals. This is a story about, people who have done bad things in their life and are generally not the greatest of heroes.
Oh, yeah.
And that.
I agree. It fit the characters perfectly.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah. And so, but it wasn't necessary because we could understand that those characters were bad without having that language. That's my argument. It's like you said,
exactly.
Lazy storytelling.
I thought in the reason I thought, goodness, let me get my thoughts together. Like I mentioned earlier, I kind of felt it was Whedon-esque in many ways, just because of the dialogue and how the characters interacted. And there were a lot of kind of anti-cliche moments, like when and kind of almost a meta moment was when Nebula drops down and she starts the monologue, and then boom, she gets blown away with the rocket, and there's Dax in there going, yeah, that was one of my favorite moments. I was like, yes, it actually made me think of The Incredibles.
Yes.
It's like, you actually got me monologuing.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, that was awesome.
Also,
so I really, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, also in the vein of The Incredibles, I can totally see just slapping the little boy on his bike at the end of the film. That was totally wicked! Because that's kind of how I felt. That's kind of how I felt coming out of this film.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Same here with the same big eyes. It was like, oh, that was amazing! It was a great story. And it wasn't overly complicated, and just kind of, I think, writers are kind of starting to go back to the old-fashioned method of, I think I mentioned this before on a previous episode. It's they don't assume too much of the audience.
Right.
So it was, aside from the language, I thoroughly enjoyed it. There were a lot of really great moments throughout it.
Mm-hmm. So I will point out two things, or I'll say it's three things that stuck out to me. Were one, the colors. Oh my goodness, the colors in this movie. The color palette was incredible. Yeah. It was just a feast for the eyes as far as all the beautiful, beautiful colors in this movie. We talked a little bit about the soundtrack. I guess that'd be my fourth one technically, but I just wanted to mention how amazing the soundtrack was with all of these, great 70s songs that had a reason for being there in storyline reason. It isn't just for tone and things like that, but it had two reasons. One, it made us sympathize with Star-Lord because of his mother. These are the songs that his mother gave him, and that's why he loves them. And also, it helped ground us in a world that is so cosmic and so strange and so alien that we had something Earth-centric to be grounded in and come back to and be, attached to feel like we're along for this ride. And so, I think that was amazing. That was point number two. The last 2 points are actually, no, this is 1 point in 2 parts. I'll point this out. The two moments story-wise that I had issue outside of any of the language or things like that, I think the transitions between the 3 acts were somewhat rushed. I think when they found out what the Infinity Stone was, and then were suddenly deciding they gotta take care of it, I think that was, a bit rushed. And then I think when they were deciding to help the Nova Corps and the home planet there, the Zandaria or something like that, whatever it was called, that planet. I felt like that was kind of rushed too. When that planet was kind of going, okay, well, we'll let the Ravagers help, Nova Corps and all that, and we'll work together to stop this guy. I thought like that was kind of rushed as well. Other than that, I thought the story was pretty solid. It's not anything spectacular on a story level. It's very simple, but the characters made this thing so memorable, and the action was fantastic as well. So,
if we're gonna get out of here, we're gonna need to get into that watchtower. And to do that, I'm gonna need a few things. The guards wear security bands to control their ins and outs. I need one.
Leave it to me.
That dude there, I need his prosthetic leg.
His leg?
Yeah. God knows I don't need the rest of him. Look at him, he's useless.
All right.
And finally, on the wall back there is a black panel. Blinky yellow light. You see it?
Yeah.
There's a Quarnix battery behind it. Purplish box, green wires. To get into that watchtower, I definitely need it.
How are we supposed to do that?
Well, supposedly these bald bodies find you attractive, so maybe you can work out some sort of trade.
You must be joking.
No, I really heard they find you attractive.
But before we go, I want to announce live on air our lineup for, well, not live because it's a podcast, but you know what I mean. Our lineup for our upcoming 10-part classic movie series. I have not read these yet, and I totally have. Here, let me.
I hope you can pronounce them.
See, look, I'm opening the envelope, you guys. I'm really just crinkling a receipt.
Drum roll.
I'm opening the envelope, and I will go ahead and, drum roll, right? Chris, you can add a drum roll. Go ahead. I have no clue, folks, what dates these are going to come out, who we're going to have on, any of that. But I'll go ahead and read these. Number 1, Jezebel from 1938, directed by William Wyler, starring Bette Davis and Henry Fonda. Number 2, and you guys can give your reactions as we go as well. So just throw anything out as we go. Number 2, from 1939, directed by John Ford and starring John Wayne, Stagecoach.
Ooh.
All right.
Good.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3 from 1941, directed by Howard Hawks, starring Gary Cooper. It is Sergeant York.
Oh, good one.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
All right. Number 4 from 1946, directed by John Ford, once again, starring Henry Fonda and Victor Mature, or I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. I don't know if you guys do. My Darling Clementine.
I haven't seen that.
All right. Number 5 from 1949, directed by Carol Reed, starring Joseph Cotton and Orson Welles, The Third Man.
Aha.
All right. From 1954, directed by Richard Fleischer, starring Kirk Douglas and James Mason, it's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yes, a childhood favorite.
All right.
So, Ben, are you excited?
Is
Just
he?
a little bit.
I couldn't tell.
I grew up on them.
I could not tell. All right. Number 7 from 1956, directed by Cecil B. DeMille, starring Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner. It's The Ten Commandments.
Dun, 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 dun.
Classic.
Yes.
Well, that's the point. Classic movies, right? So, number 8 from 1957, directed by Stanley Kubrick and starring Kirk Douglas. It's Paths of Glory.
I haven't seen that. Check
I
it
haven't
out.
seen that either. Yeah.
All right. And next from 1962, directed by John Ford. Wow, John Ford movies a lot in this one. Starring John Wayne and Jimmy Stewart, it's The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. And finally, from 1969, directed by Stanley Kubrick, 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Oh, he did.
Bow. Bow. And as a pro wrestling fan, I would be remiss if I didn't go woo in there as well, being Ric Flair's theme song for years and years and years. So, last of all, but not least, I want to thank you guys for being here and to ask you to go ahead and plug away your stuff. I know we all have our own creative endeavors and things, and so we'll do the thing we've been doing all night. Start with Benjamin, move to Ian, and come back to me.
I have a film company in which I do some commercials and stuff for people. You can find my work at speedy-productions.com.
My main company page is apologiaproductions.com. APOLOGIA.
You can find some of my writing and the various things that I am doing at rhymeandspace.com. That's like time and space. So check those websites out. Apologiaproductions.com. Is that correct, Ian?
Yep.
And one more time, what is it again? One more time?
Productions.com.
Thank you all very, very much. Be sure to like our Facebook page, the Story to Screen Facebook page, where you can find more of our podcasts and things, and like us there to receive updates on new episodes and things coming out. Also, don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes if you are not already. Thank you very much. I'm Joshua Ling.
Benjamin Curley.
I'm Ian Maffitt.
And this was the Story to Screen podcast for Guardians of the Galaxy. Everyone have a great night. Ow!